Alrighty. Hello, everyone. And welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I hope you can all hear me good. And we're going to do our watch party for this episode. So I have a link there if you're going to use the watch party link. Alright. We'll get going here, and I think what we'll do is I might just have to run outside if the tow truck guy comes here. I'm donating my old car to a causes thing where they are going to basically clean it up, and they're going to give it to people who need it. So hello, evening. So I was waiting for my car, so I'm a few minutes late, but they're still not here, the tow truck guy, of course. So he should have been here like an hour ago, but that's how it goes. So anyway, the link is there again if you want to join the watch party through Amazon. We're going to watch it. You guys, I gotta say, I've already seen it. I won't give you spoilers, but this is the best episode yet. This episode actually had decent storytelling. Compared to last episode where I was a little bit disappointed if you watched my review. On episode 3, I just felt like you could have just watched the visuals and enjoyed the visuals of the last episode, and like the storytelling was like, eh. This one, storytelling is much, much better as a cohesive entire whole. Last episode, there was a couple spots that were good, but the majority of it was kind of like, eh. You know what I mean? But this episode was really, really excellent. So I'm excited for you guys to see if you haven't already seen it. But at least we'll hang out, we'll watch it, we'll talk about it for a little bit, and then, yeah, should be fun. And by the way, a disclaimer, you guys. Just so you all know, I've had a couple comments that aren't really that great. Not from you guys. You guys are great who are here right now. But from other people. And, like, people think I'm, like, getting paid or something. I'm like, you guys, I'm not getting paid anything by Amazon at all. And I don't want to be paid anything by Amazon. Okay, just throwing that out there. It's amazing. I keep getting comments on some of my reviews. Not from you guys. It's not from normal subscribers. It's not from my normal nice people on the channel. It's from these people who just come on. I know they didn't watch my review, because if they watched my review, they would have saw I was critical on a lot of stuff. But, they just say their comment and then they leave, right? Their little thing, their little jab. And it's like, you know what? They can go and whatever. We're just going to ignore those people. Oh, someone subscribed. Welcome. All right. You might need to log in again, Shadow Gamer, on your end. Yeah, so with the link, if it tells you need to log in, that means whatever browser you're in needs to be logged in again with your password and info. To be able to, you have to be like signed in to watch, just like any streaming platform which you're using, like Netflix or Hulu or all those. It's the same thing. It's just a streaming platform. Oh, well, guess what, you guys? The tow truck is here right when I start. So, would you guys be okay for a few minutes if I just walked away? I don't want to end the stream. So I'm going to leave some music on for you guys here for a second, and then I will be back, okay? Yeah, I know, Justin. It's just crazy to me how like people they just think we're like, oh, we're all being shivs, we're all paying out to the big company. It's like I'm still a little channel. Like, I'm not getting anything, and I don't want anything. I don't want to be paid by them because I don't want the baggage of that, right? And again, I don't know if I support their show yet. I would have to see the whole season before I was like, yeah, I liked it. But so far, I mean, some of the episodes have been pretty bad. But this episode 4 was pretty darn good. So anyway, I'll be right back. I got to go get the tow truck. They're taking away my car. I'm donating it. I need like 10 minutes. So I'm going to leave some music on here. So you guys can just kind of chill and listen to some music. And I'll be back. I promise. And we'll start watching here in like less than 30 minutes. All right. Be back. You're still here. I appreciate it. almost done. We're almost done. He's actually doing it really fast. Be less time. right, everybody. Woohoo! That's done. It took a little, about as long as I thought. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you. You guys all waited. I really appreciate it. There's 8 of us here. All right, my friends. Sorry I was gone 20 minutes. 25 minutes? No, 20 minutes. All right. Let's get going on the video here. Is everyone linked up for, so I'm going to turn off the music here. I just want to leave that on so you guys didn't just have my air conditioner in the background. Let's go ahead and watch this. We'll get going. We'll watch it really fast, and then afterwards we'll talk about it a little bit. You can see I'm a little bit warm. It's hot outside today. At least my room is nice and cool, so that's a blessing. All right, you guys. Again, let me share the link one more time for you guys if you didn't get it. If you are gonna link up through the Amazon Watch Party system, if you're not, I'm gonna start that timer right there, of course, like normal. So let's get right into it, shall we? All right. I'm going to start it up here in a few seconds. There's 4 of us here that are hooked up in this, so that's good. But again, I will push play in this. And of course, I cannot stream it for you guys because that's copyright. So you're going to have to link it up with the Watch Party or using this timer. So I'm going to start it in 3, 2, 1. All right. It's about an hour long. So here we go. Thanks, Elvin. I'm glad that they've been helping you, bro. I try to bring a little positivity to everybody's life with a little Tolkien, right? That's the goal. That's the goal. Ooh, pizzas and burgers. Oh my gosh, you're making me hungry. Oh, so we're getting the recap right from the last episode. It's funny, the recap is like some of the best parts of episode 3. All right. First, this is my I watched it once last night already. I will tell you. Give you a little bit of this is one of the best episodes so far. It's much better than episode 3. Far superior, which is kind of disappointing because a lot of people are going to stop watching because of episode 3. And now we're going to have and then I'm like, I was telling people, my friends, I'm like, you guys, episode 4 was actually good, comparably. I mean, there's still some things that are like, but it's much, much better storytelling. There's actually no Harfoots in this one, surprisingly. Again, the Harfoots aren't necessarily my worst complaint. One of my worst complaints is, probably the harshest thing I've been on is, like, the personality they've kind of given to Galadriel, right? But she does something stupid again in this one, but then about halfway through, you'll see, she starts acting a little bit more like the Galadriel we know. Oh, good. Oh, that's awesome, Matthew. Good to know. Okay. Well, I'm glad you liked. By the way, mind you, episode 3 visuals were gorgeous. I loved its visuals. The visuals in this one are amazing. I just wasn't a huge fan of all the story weaving. The way the whole episode felt as a whole in episode 3 felt a little bit lacking to me, where this episode really felt like it had a beginning, middle, and end. Episode 4. So, anyway, we'll watch it here in a second after this epic intro. But good. I'm glad, Matthew. I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed episode 3. I didn't hate episode 3. I just didn't like, it wasn't like, I didn't finish and go like, oh, like, that was amazing. I was like, oh, that was fine. Like, it just felt like, for me. But episode 4, I felt like, when I watched it, I was like, whoa, like, that's good. I have with tornadoes, to answer your question. Not where I live now, but where I used to live. Alright, so it started. I don't want to talk over it. This part's not that important, though. This is kind of just like world building. But there is an awesome spot coming up here. I'm going to grab a little bit more water, but this spot You guys, watch this. This part's freaking epic. All right. So now I can talk a little bit. That part right there, you guys, that was like, gave me chills when I watched. So she obviously foresaw something, right? And they'll explain why. It's like, why does she doesn't have the power to foresee like an elf. She doesn't. They'll explain that later in the episode. But the animation for it crushing was very impressive. Good point, Justin. I think it was something to do with pacing, absolutely, and the storytelling. But this one is really well done, how it follows through the story. Yeah, time jumping was a little rough too, true. Considering a lot of us know the lore too, so it's hard. If we're having troubles, I'm sure people who have never, first time watching anything that has this kind of lore in it. Yeah, it would have very little impact on the show, correct. Like I've been saying, the hobbits are there for the sake of, they're there because they're hobbits, and so they can probably sell toys later. You know that's the reason. Though I must say that Eleanor, or Nori, I like to call her Eleanor because it's confusing with the dwarf. Anyway, Ar-Pharazôn, lore-wise, right here, it's perfect. He's perfect. The way he looks, the way he talks, he's exactly how I imagined. Yeah, they definitely need to show how they go crazy evil. Like the bad side, Matthew, is that what you're saying? Yeah. I hope that they show it. Because they need to show how they go so far lost, and that's why the Valar just... Anyway, again, that whole part, I thought this was excellent. Again, by the way, guys, I will pop out my review. I made the review last night because I wanted to make it while it was fresh of the whole thing, so I'll have that out too on the channel. Hopefully I don't get stupid, silly, random comments from people who I know didn't watch my review, because otherwise they wouldn't have made the comment. Not you guys, but I've just had a couple random people who aren't subscribers just make comments, and it's like, they're just troublemakers. I'm literally like so neutral when it comes to liking or disliking this show, and yet people still on both the opposite sides are like so intense about it. I actually like this conversation between... I like these two characters, even though technically I think they're both made up. Her name sounds like a character, though, in the story. She might be a real character. But it just might just be a well-put name. Yeah, you're right, you're right. It's like the fun thing to do to argue the opposite point or be extreme on the one side. It's true. Either side. I'm someone who will literally talk to anyone with any view, even views I disagree with. And I agree to disagree or have a good conversation. Like, I like that. But when people just say mean things for the sake of being mean and they know they're not going to have a real conversation, I ignore those people. Because they're not really trying to have a conversation, are they? And that's on both sides. Both sides of politics, both sides of issues. It's always on the extremes on both sides. Back. Yeah, Matthew, that's totally true. Just turn it to pillar of salt. The end of the story, they get really bad. Definitely some parallels there. So this part is okay until right about here. And this is kind of where, like, that conversation is fine, but this, her, like, getting, like, super ridiculously frustrated. I like that he kind of said, that's quite enough. I think that line was a little bit random. It's just that whole part didn't feel super. And then she gets slammed in jail. It's like, well, of course. Now this conversation's pretty good. So again, that whole part, for me personally, if someone liked it, that's fine. I'm not saying if you liked it, that's fine. But for me, that whole part was like, ugh, cringy. But that was one of the cringiest parts in this whole episode for me. The rest I really enjoy. And you start... So someone whispers Isildur. I'm curious what this is going to be. Who this is supposed to be whispering to him. Is it supposed to be the sea? I'm kind of curious if they're going to make it like, you know, like Goldberry is like the river woman's daughter. I mean, Riverman's daughter, right? That's Goldberry. She's a spirit of the river. I'm curious if they're going to do like a spirit of the ocean or something. You know, some made-up character like that. Which wouldn't be super, super far out with the lore, but would be a made-up character. We'll see. I don't think it's Galadriel talking to him, though. I don't know why she would... I don't know. It felt good when he locked her up. I know. I had a little bit of that feeling. But that's their made-up story plot, right? With her all saying that and being locked up. But then they... And this is what other thing, like, from a leadership perspective. Why would that guy kick his friends out of the program who didn't do anything wrong? Were they like a squad? They have to all pass together or something? Like, I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. I mean, a decent conversation, but yikes. I the orcs I think are actually pretty dang well done. I like the orcs. That is one of the reasons why the Galadriel personality of a teenager acting elf doesn't make sense to me, Justin. Like, because she at this point is already really old. She shouldn't be an upstart teenager thing. This whole part is very interesting though. But she starts acting like the Galadriel I know from the books later in this episode. So I've this part was interesting. I don't know why he seemed like he almost was sorry for his. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that part. I do like the fact that he just kills him, even though he kills him kind of mercifully, sort of. He just takes his stuff. So he talks in Elven, right? This character. So this guy's really good at talking, right? He's like... So he doesn't say who he is, right? It's pretty obvious to me that this, I think, is either it's a servant leader, like an elf that's gone real bad, or this is Sauron in a different form, right? Because he takes many forms. Because the way he kind of messes with him, and also kind of like reminisces, but is also like really good at talking, where like he kind of gets to the heart of like, where do you grow up? You know, in Elven, right? I have a feeling I can see that character, if he didn't have the yucky look, turning into like a fair form of an elf later, right? And being very manipulative. So we'll see. We'll see. But one of my votes is I think that's Sauron. And by the way, Ada, or whatever they were saying, that means father. That doesn't mean, that's not another name for Sauron. So we're not 100% sure if it's Sauron. The kid? He's an interesting character. I think he makes a really stupid choice in this episode. But, and I'll explain where that is later. But this conversation's good. He just wants to help, right? And I like, she's like, you could make it harder, and he's like, okay, mom. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I like that. That was a good little interaction. But I don't know with this kid. I don't know what they're gonna make, like, if they're gonna make him like some character in the future, or if he's completely made up. I kind of have a feeling he might just completely made up just for a part of this plot. But maybe he'll be some big character because of that dagger sword thing he has, right? That's obviously some kind of Morgul evil blade, probably made by Sauron, which there's a little hint in this episode that it might be being looked for. Again, I think that's made up for the series. Here's where it's okay. So they're like, good, they got food. This is awesome. So what's wrong with this next part right here with this decision? Why in the world would he go into a building when he literally first met the orcs coming through his floor in his house in this same town? What would make him not think that maybe the big tavern would also have a hole in the ground underneath it because of the sunlight, right? They come in there because then they don't have to be in the sunlight, the orcs. I'm like, how, this kid's old enough to remember what happened to him like 2 days ago, right? Like, what are you doing? Right? Okay, so that's a little unrealistic there. I gave a negative point on that with my review, but, you know, they want to make suspense for the movie. So becomes a Sauron follower. I think you probably have a point there. There's definitely going to be something there where, you know, the Haradrim are very mixed, right? Some of them are good guys, some of them are bad guys. That's in the actual lore. But this, even though he's a made-up character, I think, yeah, he might become a... Maybe he'll have, like, a change of heart and then die heroically or something. Who knows what they'll do. So this kid actually does something smart. He's like, crap, the cloud came over. I'm out of here, right? Like, come out. I don't know what that guy's doing in that room, but I'm out. Like, I was like, everyone's like, oh, he left his friend. I'm like, I don't know, man. His friend's being an idiot. It's like... So we get a little bit of that black speech happening, and then he stabs his arm, and the blood goes into it, and it grows, right? Which is a very interesting idea. Which I don't think is something in the lore. But interesting for the show. So the orc's like, great, I have to go outside now, right? But the cloud went over, so... I do find it interesting that the orcs know what a boy is, right? And I mean, I think they realistically probably would still, to an extent. They'd have that knowledge. Hits him in the friggin' head. You think he could jump out of the water any louder, though? All right, this part. Oh, man. That is such a cool shot. So, like, the forge they're building. I love this conversation. It's fantastic. Anyway, whole conversation fantastic. I love that. I love that he was like, oh, you know, your father and you have that ability to see far off, which they do have that future sight, right, that Elrond has. I thought it was a really good conversation. Well done. That, like, you could tell she's hiding something, but... a little creepy. I like both their characters. I feel like they represent dwarves pretty well. Good day. He, like, bumps him. I love that part. Bump. The cut. Well, Worldly, we are watching. What's up, Worldly? Good to see you. We're watching it right now. We're 29 minutes in. Or 30 minutes in, I should say. I have a link to the Amazon watch party up there too somewhere, but let's see if I can. This is like one of the best parts in the whole episode 4. I think it's interesting that Elrond, you guys, knows how to open the door, right? The Dwarven door. It would make sense that he'd be like the only elf that might know how to get into a secret door. Alright, so this whole conversation again by Elrond and Dern are so good in a minute. And look what he finds, which we were all hoping for in episode 2, right? Dern, what? I love that. He's like, you want it for yourself! So I really like this part. I like that Darren asks him to make an oath that he won't tell anybody else, but he'll tell him everything about what he's doing. And this part's very good. I really like Elrond so far. Like, it gives you the side of Elrond that you hear about in the books that you don't see in the Lord of the Rings adaptation. But here we go. This is pretty cool. Hey guys, it's Mithril. This is really cool. I love this whole. This is so good. So they're hiding it from everybody, including the dwarves, because they don't want to make everyone do basically a gold rush, like, you know, and go for it and get themselves killed trying to get it. Mithril. And I like the fact that Elrond, he gives it right back to him right here, right? The mithril. And then Durin, like, gives it to him. So Durin's like, token of our friendship, here, you can have that piece of mithril that's probably worth billions of dollars. Right? Like, I think that's cool. And then we have this, the reason why his father, the king, is not wanting to do this, mining. So the cave collapsed, right? And he's like, my 4 dwarves are down there, right? Excellent story building, that he's a true prince. He cares about, and he cares about his people, right? And then again, Numenor looks so good here. And this whole conversation is also good. Again, this episode was, it's amazing to me how episode 3 was like so disappointing to me. And like, except for the visuals were gorgeous, storytelling wise. And this one was just like completely night and day difference. For me, at least. I don't want to take it away from people who might have liked the other one. If I see these strange young men, you'll be the first I know. So funny. Yeah, they're yeah. Well, that was one of my Matthew complaints of last episode. The whole part with the elves in the trench, at the beginning and the end, literally did not move the plot forward because they didn't even leave. He never left the trench, and then the next episode he leaves. It was definitely worse in episode 3 than this episode. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying with the romance thing. But at least it's a good conversation, the romance thing. So this is when she says the whole wrong thing. So basically, he schools her in how to be smart. And then immediately she flips 180. Yes, and none of it that acted like Galadriel, in my opinion, to answer his thing. So basically, helps her. Here's one other spot that this episode bothered me. Okay, this is another spot that I didn't like in this episode. Even though there's a lot that I liked in this episode, this doesn't make any sense to me. This, like, from a choreograph of fighting perspective at all. Right here. Watch how fast this happens, and how does she get all these armed guards in that cell behind her in that time period? Doesn't make sense to me. She's to jump off more ships. Yeah, no kidding. That's just the starts still worst. Like, how did she get all those armed guards? Elves aren't that strong, you guys. So, I would have liked a little bit more realistic fighting there, where she knocked one against the wall, maybe his head into the wall, it kind of like dazes him, falls over kind of thing, and then runs away. You know what I mean? Something a little bit more realistic would have been nice there. But, whatever. Again, I criticize that quite heavily in my review video that I'm going to post today. Look at that back thing, though, with the elves and Numenorians fighting dragons. Like, that's a really cool. The artwork back there is fantastic. So the elves escaped, and then you see the tower. By the way, the music right now, and the music in parts of this episode was so much better than the previous episodes. Where was this music in the previous episodes? Okay, so this part's fantastic. I love this part. So what they're showing here is that Galadriel has the realization that mortality, and she even says, "Forgive me." And now she suddenly starts acting like the Galadriel I know from the books at this point. She but why did they have to write it at this point where she had to be a stinker like that and then slightly start changing like this? But I like the fact that they showed the difference about the immortality and mortality of men within that scene, which they needed to do in this series. They had to do it in some way, and that way, for me, that showed that greatly in that scene, with him being an old man, being really sick and dying, kind of thing. Even though I'm sure he's very old, he's probably hundreds and hundreds of years old because he's a Numenorian. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw it, but that sword she walked by was I'm almost 100% sure was Anduin. I think they got the rights to the blade because it looked identical to the United Cutlery blade. That was kind of cool. And then she says it right. And this whole conversation is interesting. That's true. Now, one thing they mess up here with the lore. The Seeing Stones cannot give you glimpses of the future. They're not crystal balls. They're Seeing Stones. They're not a crystal. They're a stone. And they have particular uses. But they basically are doing this because Galadriel has the ability to see into the future in the books, we know. With her seeing mirror, right? When she has a ring of power in her forest. But again, this gave me chills at the beginning, the whole part where it showed the Numenor, basically the future. So apparently they did a lore tweak there that, the Palantir also has this ability to see a future possibility, right? It's not... They don't actually show visions. This whole conversation's still really, really good, though. I enjoyed it. I won't talk over it. I really like one thing about this part in a second, I'll tell you. She sounds like a real Galadriel right now. This is what the other Galadriel sounded like from at least from Lord of the Rings adaptation. That sounds like Galadriel to me. The original from Lord of the Rings. That whole little line right there she gave. And her way she acted. And I like this, though. I like this part where she gives her this answer. Meaning she agrees with her. So basically, she's like, I think I agree with you, but I can't do that for my kingdom. And that's realistic. That was realistic to me. That whole part was really realistic. I'm glad that she wasn't like, yeah, let's group up and do this. It's like, no, she's literally the regent of a kingdom. She can't just hope that that's the right choice and go against everything and everyone that's disagreeing with her in the kingdom, right? So that was really, I thought, really well done. But then, of course, at the end, they do something here that makes sense, too. So, anyway. The one kid brings the food back, right? So he's still hiding in the well. This part's a little bit funny. Like, it's enjoyable, but it's like kind of like almost like a video game. My sister said it's like a video game because he's like trying to escape and he's like hiding behind things and the orcs are like saying things, right? And I agreed with her. It did feel like that. Which again, not terrible, but he's got a limp because he's got his leg cut, remember? I think that's the reason he has a limp. I think the orcs' voices are great. I also like that they're like talking in black speech. They're, you know. It's a little dark, this scene. Now it's better with the light, but I always like it when scenes, even if they're dark, you can still see well. So far in this series, it's actually been decent with the dark scenes. The scenes haven't been too dark. Like, I complained about that in the Harry Potter last one. It was so dark, you couldn't even see the battle. And then, of course, this part makes me giggle. Smart to drop into the grass. That part's smart. But, I love that the orcs are practical orcs, though. Practical effects, and they're not CGI. I really like that, though. But right here, this part, he's like, sits against a wall in the open, and he's like, does this awkward little smile, like, yeah, I escaped. And you're like, oh, he's done. He's done for. Right? And then, of course, an orc grabs him, right? Little bit. But this... I like how he screams like he thinks his arm's off and then realizes it's not his blood. So remember, the guy let him go, which I believe is probably supposed to be Sauron, but... Hey, they are coming! He pulled the Moria line! They are coming! Boom, boom. You know that was a hint at the Moria line. Come on, guys, you know it. Again, cool, good music that's actually recognizable. You're like, oh, this is music, right? Like, music that I'd probably remember if I heard it again later. I don't know why the last 3 episodes haven't had music that's rememberable as much. Some of it's there. There's a tiny bit, but it's not a whole lot. Like, there's like 2 or 3 in episode 3 that were good music spots. But like, I'm glad to hear some actual good soundtrack. And the slow-mo was actually pretty decent here. This is what they showed in the teaser, remember? I'm curious. He might be half-elven. I don't know. It would be really weird for them to be adding too many half-elves when in the lore there's so few, right? Like Elrond is, and right, Elros was, and a few others. I thought for sure she was dead here. I thought the mom was gonna die in this part. Sorry, spoiler. She doesn't die right here. It's only like 1 minute long, so. Dude! I literally made the same joke you'll see in my review. The stormtrooper joke? They're literally the stormtroopers. They can't hit anything. Like, I literally make the joke during watching the episode the first time, and I made the joke during my review. Yeah. Stormtrooper works. Totally. 100%. Can't hit anything. Also, where did he get his weapons? He must have had a stash or something. They don't explain that. Why does the elf have a good elven sword and good weapons and stuff? I highly doubt they gave him his weapons back. I do like the fact that once again they're showing how orcs are so hate sunlight, right? When the sun comes up here. And they're just like, oh man, we can't chase them, right? And then I'm like, why aren't they shooting arrows? And then they do start shooting arrows. But again, stormtrooper orcs. They can't shoot the broadside of a barn, apparently. Of course, Jethros, my friend, was saying, well, maybe it's because they have the sun in their eyes and they can't shoot well. But, I mean, they're in the forest. Wouldn't they still be able to? And I like they don't stay too long once they realize they're not being chased. They're like, okay, let's go. Now they shoot at the very spot, you know. Stormtrooper orcs, yeah. A little bit, yeah. Love these visual shots, though, these mountains. So now this is cool. So we're back at the... I actually thought this part was interesting. And I heard the singing's actually really cool. So I thought I was going to dislike this part when I saw it in the trailer. But just watch. I won't talk during it. So the mountain, like, kind of shakes. And then she explains what they were doing in this singing. This whole part is really well done. I love this part. This part was good. So he's saying, thank goodness you went down there. I love that part. I love that she apologizes and says, I'm so glad you were there because you basically saved Durin's life. Now we get straight to... Here we go. I love it. I love the fact that they all survived. Now he's upset about this. This whole part's excellent. I love this part. So you gotta understand his frustration, right? But you also understand the king is his dad. He doesn't want dwarves to die mining for this stuff, right? So this whole conversation's great, though, by Elrond. I love what he says. The music's good here, too. Again, really fantastic. I know it's a very generic conversation, but it was really well done, really well worded, really well acted. This part's funny too. It was a battle cry. And then there's another good. This conversation is also really good between the Durin father and this guy and the main. Also, that view of Khazad-dûm is amazing. This is really good. Again, his beard's fantastic. Crown, could be a little better, but beard's fantastic. Great voice, too. The music, too, is pretty awesome in the background of this part. Little bit of a lore change there, but still great conversation. Really, I love that. It's such a good conversation. Character building, too, between the Durin king and the son, right? And now a new good conversation. Something more at work. Yep. Good, my son. What? Good conversation, too. I love this. So that's going to be flowing into next episode, right? He's going to send him to Linden. Again, very good. Character building, story building. It's really well done. Very, very enjoyable. Now, I like this part, too, where she, kind of looks like she wants him to hug her or something, and he doesn't, because very elven, right? Again, his short hair, though, because, come on, elf. Grow your hair out. What the heck? Right. Still bothers me a little bit. The hair thing still bothers me a little bit with elves and dwarves, but again, I think I know why they did that, but we won't go into that again. Ostirith, which is apparently this abandoned keep, is that name he just mentioned. This tower. So, next, again, leading into next episode, there's probably gonna assault it, right? And it's gonna be a similar thing to Helm's Deep, is my guess. I don't know if they're gonna be rescued though. Maybe they're all gonna die. I don't know. I mean, it'd probably be realistic, even it'd be really sad. And then we have a little bit of character building with this kid again, which this part's fine. I don't really care either way. This dagger sword thing is very interesting. I find it very cool, even though I don't think it's probably... Morgul blade-wise, yes, they do disappear and stuff, but... So that hilt is from his barn. So he's got a stab mark in his arm. Obviously, he's used the hilt. Obviously. And he's looked a kid because he stabbed into his arm. Whatever. I love how full Gollum mode with the sound effect. I love when he says the name, it does that echo effect like they did in Peter Jackson's. That was pretty well done. Again, epic music right here. I like the music. Oh, and then we see a really nasty shot of him eating an arm. That was a little bit gross. So obviously that sword is something he's looking for. Now that we know. This part is also rather good. Galadriel's walking away majestically, how she should be. Leaving because the queen's telling her to leave. But she doesn't jump off into the water. I like to point that out every once, so that's a good thing. Yeah, they're really good. I like the fact that they have that scary kind of like, you know how they showed like the Brelanders, some of them were really scary in the tavern when the hobbits came in? I like he's got that same scary, rugged look. Really good music again right here, you guys. This is gonna be iconic in the future. This soundtrack right here. Finally, something that's rememberable. I don't know why it took 4 episodes to get some good music, but again, this episode, I overall just like this episode so much more. I didn't dislike all the other ones tremendously, but last one was just kind of disappointing for me. It just felt lacking. This one was so. This whole part's good. I don't want to talk over it. It's really good. Their armor is fantastic. I like the green and gold. And the blues. I'm a big fan of the gold look with armor and stuff. I always think it looks cool. Even if it's just for more of the look of armor, because obviously these guys aren't going to war, So he's kind of sad. He's like, yeah, I don't know about this decision, but I'll follow it. You know what I mean? Because, again, he's just a lord of a place. He's not supposed to be the king. Not even the lore. Now, this whole part is very good. And, again, the music's very good with this. This is what we saw in the trailer, right? So the white tree is putting off its leaves again. And then she remembers her so-called prophecy, which I think is made up for the show, but look at that shot of the awesome stuff behind there. It's so cool. And he's like, he kind of realizes something too. This is what she said, right, to him? So the tree obviously does not drop its petals. That's not a thing it does, obviously, I would assume. So basically, she thinks that it dropping its petals is saying you're making the wrong choice. Okay? If you're not following that, I think it's pretty easy to follow, but if you don't get that, that's what I think is going on. And then her father, like, wakes up. So I don't know if that's because something good they're choosing or what. Oh, look at these shots, though. Oh, Numenor looks so good, you guys. Exactly what I imagined in the books. So she's deciding she's gonna go. I like that our Farazan here still is being a good leader, being very good at his political talking. So then, of course, they three did it, and then everyone else is like, all right. So a large majority of people agreed. They're like, okay, we'll do this, right? So, very interesting, and I bet you in the next ones they're going to start showing the divide when Sauron starts basically lying to Al-Farazan. Because Al-Farazan right now, Al-Farazan is not technically a bad guy originally, right? But, yeah. So, I just think that, it's, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop the counter there. Anyway, thanks for joining me, you guys. Hopefully you had fun. I know we started a little bit late about that, but, oh, I've got to turn off that little side screen thing there. Yeah, so, anyone got any questions or stuff about anything? Because, like, I really enjoyed this episode. It was far, in my own personal opinion, again, this is not an attack if you liked the previous episodes. So, like, I know Matthew was saying he loved the previous one, which is fantastic. I'm glad you liked it. But for me personally, and a lot of my friends and cousins I was talking to, we didn't really like episode 3 very much. We were kind of disappointed in episode 3. We loved the visuals, but it was like you could have taken away the story plot and just had the beautiful scenic views and visuals, and that would have been enjoyable, right? There's a couple good spots in episode 3, like I love the Library of Elros and that conversation. Of course, though, she's like, how could I be so blind to not see that it was Mordor all along? And that's funny because, like, how did all the elves not realize that? That's kind of a weird one, considering a lot of people were already guessing that plot, being, Matt, my friend Matt at Nerd of the Rings, he guessed that was probably a symbol, you know, showing Mordor's outline. It's like, so that's kind of weird to me that they wouldn't have figured that out, the elves themselves. But anyway, besides that, moving on. This episode 4 was very, very entertaining. So, yeah, it definitely, it also, Shirji, I found that it felt like it actually, like, followed the, like, it actually followed, it built on the actual lore background more, right? With, like, what they're going to need to do. Again, they are squishing some things with timelines, but I think they're going to do it in a way that might actually be enjoyable still. It won't just ruin the entire history, because there's a lot of gaps in the Second Age where it's literally Tolkien gives us so much info on the areas that are important, but then he just leaves gaps. Like, 1,000 years passed. And it's like, that's 1,000 years. So a lot of those are gaps that they're gonna push together. That I think they can make work. Again, we'll judge it when it comes out. I'm not gonna be super nice on it. I'm still gonna give it a real judgment, right? If it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. That's how it goes, right? I'm not trying to pander to Amazon. Sorry, Amazon. We're gonna do what we like or dislike about a show, right? I can't believe still there's so many people who are being so mean to people who are reviewing it. And they're like, oh, you're a shill, you're paying out. It's like, I don't want anything from Amazon. They have not paid me anything or given me anything, mind you. This is just me wanting to cover it because I'm a Tolkien channel and they are considering themselves making Tolkien content. I know some people are like, this isn't Tolkien at all. And I understand that because there's parts of I'm like, this isn't Tolkien at all, where I say that too. But there's other parts that are like, okay, this is good, this is enjoyable. And now as a standalone fantasy series, again, this episode was fantastic. If you're saying just standalone, like, oh, this as an entertainment, this episode was really good for me. I really enjoyed it. But even from a Tolkien perspective, I thought there were parts in this episode that were fantastic. They were really good. Yeah, Worldly, I do agree. The other ones, there's not enough happening. That's why episode 3 was so painful for me. World Lexicon, like, it just felt too slow. This one, I will say too, it does feel like, if I'm gonna say from an overall history perspective, yes, it does feel like they're dragging it out a little bit. It does, because they're like trying to flesh out their own plots that they've made, right? But this episode was definitely better than the other 3, though. From like from a pacing perspective, this episode was actually enjoyable to me. Where I finished episode 4 last night and just now watching with you guys, and I was kind of like, hey, I'm uplifted. I enjoyed it. That was enjoyable. It didn't feel like I felt lacking, because again, this episode 4 had a beginning, a middle, and an end, which every episode in a series should have. Really, every episode should have that. I don't know why in some TV series where they're like, they just do like this middle filler episode, and it's just like, that doesn't really feel like anything, right? Again, a lot of the episodes, like, you don't want to have to wait to the end of a series to have any enjoyment, right? Like, oh, okay, now I understand the previous 10 episodes. That's not how season should be. You should still be able to enjoy every episode, right? Which is why, again, I think episode 3 is going to lose a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't going to watch after episode 3, because episode 3 was like, kind of rather bad besides its visuals, and then episode 4 was fantastic. And it's like, why didn't they make episode 3 a little bit better story writing wise? That's my opinion, at least. And Galadriel started acting more like the Galadriel from the Lord of the Rings adaptation by the end of this episode. So I'm like, okay, maybe they are gonna bring her back. Again, I don't know why in the world they made her seem like an upstart teenager, because I've said this example a few times. They should not have made Galadriel seem like a 15-year-old, and then later in Lord of the Rings, she's like a 60-year-old. Realistically, a better comparison would be in age, is that right now she's 60, and in Lord of the Rings, she's 62. Like, that's the difference, because she's already thousands and thousands of years old at this point. So she should know how to conduct herself and not be this upstart little character, right? So, again, some people have liked that. I know I've had some people in comments say, oh, I liked how they did it in it. That's fine. I'm not trying to hurt those people who like it. I'm just saying, me personally, as someone who's really read the books and stuff, and my views of what I think Galadriel is, I was a little disappointed in the first couple episodes. This one at the end, though, this episode 4, I'm starting to be like, okay, I can let it slide. I'll stop making fun of her every second if she starts acting more radiant and more humble and more like the Galadriel with intelligence, and not this upstart, like, where she like kind of flares her nostrils kind of thing, and like it's really frustrated. And it's like, you're thousands of years old. You're beyond being frustrated like a teenager, right? That's, anyway, let me catch up what you guys are saying here. Get my little rant there. Yeah, the scene with the king got a lot better, especially, yeah. Again, the king's being all over. Worldly Lexicon made this joke to me the other day. He's like, I met a king yesterday from an exiled from Rohan in the grocery store. It made me laugh really hard, Worldly. He sent me a message the other day. Yeah, I think that they should be putting more into it, Worldly. I do. I agree. Yeah, I do agree with that. By the way, Worldly Lexicon is one of my cousins. You guys, just throwing that out there if you didn't know that. I think you all know that. He's been on the channel a few times. We did a StarCraft episode, but I do agree with that, Worldly Lexicon, totally. I think that I would have rathered. It's kind of disappointing. Me and Worldly were talking about this the other day, so you guys can know. I kind of wish that they had made it where it feels like we lower our standards today on movies, because like if we had watched this against the Lord of the Rings 15 years ago, we would have been like, wow, this is totally bad, right? But now we're like, we've lowered our standards, so we're like, oh, well, it's not horrible, so it's okay, right? Again, episode 4 was more in the moderate level of, oh, that was really pretty decent, for me at least. I enjoyed that. It was enjoyable, and it felt like more like Lord of the Rings to me, right? Or at least Peter Jackson's adaptations. Episode 4 felt more like that for me. But yeah. And again, remember, there's a lot of stuff Peter Jackson did that people didn't like either. but it wasn't on the same level. Peter Jackson got something that was just so... He got to a point where it's like you could almost make it not more perfect than he did, right? Like, he's like the golden standard, right? How Peter Jackson did Lord of the Rings. Now, granted, it wasn't as good The Hobbit, right? The Hobbit wasn't as good as his Lord of the Rings, but it was still good. The Hobbit was still good. The Hobbit was better done so far than the Rings of Power episodes have been, if that makes sense, at least for me. You're talking about my archery episode? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did have better aim than those orcs. Yes. Yeah, my friend, shout out to my friend Night Chaos in that video we did for the Rohirrim Ranch. You're talking about the Lotra Life one, right? When I told him the mechanic of make sure your arms don't move when you release and where to hold and aim, literally, like, right after I told him that, he shot and hit the target. Like, that was impressive. I was like, that couldn't have been better for the video. We did not plan that. I did not cut or edit that. That was literally, I explained it to him. He listened, he readjusted, and fired to hit the target. I was like, whoa. I was like, dang, good job, Knight. Yeah, Knight would be the best orc in the show. Exactly. Oh man, yeah, I was very impressed with him, very impressed. And I see you guys are all here. It tells me right now that there's only one person watching, and I know there's at least 4 or 5 of you here because you're all commenting. So YouTube's thing is weird. It doesn't tell me the right info. It's really annoying. So anyway, guys, thank you for being here. I'm gonna go get lunch with my family. Thanks for hanging out with us, Worldly. At least maybe I'm gonna release my review if you guys are curious. I know you just spent an hour and a half with me here watching this, but later, maybe the few days, if you want to see it. Yes, cheers. Thank you for coming to watch with us. I appreciate it. I'll put up the review. Again, I had a lot more high scores for this, but I still go for the... Again, I don't know why people are attacking different YouTubers that are like being middle ground on this, because I'm very negative on things that I dislike about it, and I'm positive on things I like. And it's funny how people are always like, they cannot get through their heads that someone can have multiple views at once, right? Like, I can like some things and hate other things about the same thing I'm watching, right? It's got multiple things. They're like, oh, you must like one thing, you must endorse the entire thing. It's like, no, I don't. I don't endorse the whole thing, right? And vice versa, right? You hate one thing, oh, you must hate the entire thing. It's like, no, I actually enjoy some of it. So, again, I have lower standards that I would have had 10 years ago. That's kind of disappointing, but at the same time, there are parts that I really have enjoyed in this episode 4. So, yes, till next week. I may, just so you guys know ahead of time right now, I may not be having the watch party next week. I'm trying to think of my date. I'm going to be going on vacation, and I may be out of town. So you may have to watch it without me, but I'll still do a review for you on the video. And then we'll watch the next episode after that, which is a bummer because it'll probably get an episode. But we'll see. We'll see. I might be able to work it out. It depends on when we're leaving. The date. I don't remember right now. But all right, you guys. Have a great day in Middle Earth, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Oh, and I got a good little shout out, and thanks to my my Patreons here. Thanks to them for supporting the channel. Subscribers can be here if you're watching this as a video later. I don't know why later people would watch this because it's just me talking, but you know, if you do, love it. You're awesome. Next episode there and there. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll see you later. And Worldly, we're gonna play some video games later, right, cousin? All right, see you guys.